Doesn't seem to matter what background, or religion, or culture, or nationality, or age in which you live. It seems that all people everywhere, are taken by the end of the world. And there have been predictions about the end of the world, and there have been thoughts about when it's going to happen and how it's going to happen. And everybody throughout history has had this focus on this is how the world will end. This is how it's all going to happen. And Jesus today reminds us that we can't know that. We can't know when the end of the world is going to happen. We can't know how it's all going to unfold. He says very specifically, of that day, of that hour, no one knows. Only the Father. Not even the Son himself, nor the angels, nor all the powers of heaven. No one knows. And yet, there are some markers that he highlights to give us a heads up, as it seems. But as we Christians ourselves look at the end of the world, at the coming of Christ into the world, and we look at every other culture who has looked at that, there is a tendency to focus on destruction. There's a tendency to focus on the cosmic events of the universe. And even Jesus begins by speaking about that. The sun will darken, the moon will disappear, the stars will fall. All of these great and horrible and terrible things are going to be cataclysmic and happen. And every age has sort of looked towards that. But Christ reveals to us, I think, in a more subtle way, that his coming doesn't belong to any one particular age, but rather his coming belongs to every age. And the church even recognizes that the coming of Christ happens threefold. Number one, Christ comes in history. That there was a time, 2,000 years ago, when the Son of God humbled himself, descended to earth, and was born among us as a man. And we are preparing in just a few weeks to celebrate that great mystery throughout the seasons of Advent and Christmas. And in some way, is it then true what Jesus said? The sun will darken and fall from the sky, and the stars will disappear. Isn't that what happened in the Incarnation? The glorious Son of God hides his glory, comes down to earth, and practically disappears. And nobody sees him except those with faith. They recognize the coming of Christ into the world. And so his prediction for the future already happened. That the sun did fall from the sky, that the moon did cover itself up, that the stars themselves fell out of the heavens in worship of this lowly one that nobody recognized. Only faith could see Christ wrapped in humanity. And in that moment of history, God walked among us, and not everyone saw it. Only those with the eyes of faith could recognize that the Christ was among them. Christ comes in history. But Christ also comes in the present moment. That one of the beautiful things about Christ's historical coming into the world and then his ascension into heaven is that now he opened up the experience of himself to everyone, no matter when, no matter where they lived. That Christ is coming into the world. And that is coming not only points to the future, but also points to the present. Remember what he said to Martha and Mary as they were grieving their brother Lazarus' death? That Martha believes that you are the Christ. Indeed, I am he who is coming into the world. Not some future reality alone, but something that's unfolding right now. That Christ's coming into the world is happening among us. That it is already going on. It's already happening. that not only when he came as that infant child lived in the flesh, but also his presence is now unfolding in the world through all of those baptized and confirmed members of his body. That as his Spirit is shared with us, that he becomes more and more visible through us. And that we are called then to recognize him in all of the events and all of the people and all of those moments when he touches our lives. He is coming into our lives. And again, the only way we see him is by faith. Because once again, the sun has fallen from the sky, the moon has darkened, the stars disappear. We don't see God as we might expect. It is all shrouded in darkness. He comes to us in mystery. He comes to us through the sacraments. He comes to us in our daily prayer. He comes to us through those chance encounters that we sometimes label as coincidence, but might better label as providence. That God comes to our lives, but we have to believe it. We have to look for it. We have to know it. And finally, the church recognizes that Christ is coming in glory. That there is a final moment when Christ will appear in his glory. And once again, he will come grandly. He will come visibly. He will be seen by us. But when he comes, we do not know. How he will come, we do not know. That he will come, we can be sure of. But if we are to recognize him, if we are to know him, when that sun is not darkened, when that moon does not crash to the sky, to the earth, how will we know him? How will we know him visibly before us? We have gotten to know him in those previous two comings. We've gotten to know him in history. And we've gotten to know him in the present moment. And if we can recognize him at work in our lives right now, and if we can recognize how he worked and lived and was through the scriptures and through history, then we will have no trouble recognizing him when he comes finally, when he brings everything to himself. And we will look at him face to face and we will say, I know you. I recognize you. And he will say likewise to us, I know you. You have been near me all your life. And so it comes as no great surprise. And I think then, that is the humility and the beauty of Christian obedience. Because every age in some way has been arrogant in thinking that the end times is going to happen in their age. We look around us and we see wars raging. We see natural disasters all over the place. We see people falling away from the faith left and right, and we are tempted to say, see, these are signs that the world is coming to an end. But I tell you, they thought that in the year 999. They thought that in centuries before us. Every age has looked at the wars raging, has looked at natural disaster, has looked at the diseases that plague them, has looked at everything we look at and say the world is ending, and somehow become arrogant in that look, I've figured it out. I know what the Son of God himself could not know. And in that we are blinded. We do not see Christ anymore. We're looking at other things. But Jesus doesn't direct us to look to the wars or look to natural disaster or disease. He says, look at the fig tree. Look at those very little things. Look at how that branch softens and how the bud slowly opens and how the leaf then, little by little, is made visible. That's how you will know the coming of the Son of God. Not in the big things, in those little things. Are we aware of what God is doing in our lives right now? Do we see how he quietly and stealthily moves among us, in our brothers and sisters, in those who are hurting, in those who are needy, in those who are forgiving? Do we recognize him in the slow and unfolding pattern of his life? That's how we know Christ is coming. And if we begin focusing on that, then we don't focus on the things that cause us fear. We focus on the one who takes away fear, the one who gives us confidence, the one who solidifies our knowledge of Him who is already coming into the world. So on the one hand, every age and every people who look to the end of the world are in some sense arrogant. But on the other hand, everyone who looks in that direction is also right. Because the end of the world is happening. The end of the world is today. The coming of the Christ is right now. But the question is, do we have the eyes of faith to see it? Or are we focused on everything else that is not Christ? That is where we will know our King, in the little things of daily life. So that when finally the consummation of heaven and earth take place, it will not come as a surprise. Even though we did not know the day or the hour, it will be welcome to us, because we will finally see the Christ whom we have always known, whom we have always found. So dive in to knowing Him in those quiet things: daily prayer, celebration of sacraments, forgiveness of sins, generosity in life, building up relationships. In those things, we will find Christ the King, and we will know His coming.